Adjective clause are a type of dependent clause that describe a noun, just as an individual subjective does, while normal subjectives are usually just a single word or phrase. Adjective clause always contain a subject, verb, and usually include some other words as types of adjective clause in English. There are two types of adjective clause based on the information they give. 1. Essential adjective clause or restrictive adjective clause. Essential adjective clause are dependent clause that modify a noun or a pronoun with essential or defining information. The noun or the pronoun they identify are not proper or specific. An essential adjective clause is important to the meaning of the sentence as give essential information about the noun or pronoun it modifies. For example, I don't know anyone who can teach you boxing. People who can control their minds live a highly successful life. We are looking for a place where we party peacefully. I know the reason why she broke up with you. That was the year when we got married. The box that you sent me yesterday was empty. I still have the letter that she had written for me on Valentine's Day. Try reading this sentence without the adjective clause. The sentence will have completely different meaning without them. That's why we are calling them essential adjective clause, as they are essential to reader the right meaning. 2. Non-essential adjective clause or non-restrictive adjective clause. Non-essential adjective clause are dependent clause that modify a noun or a pronoun with non-essential or non-defining information. The noun or the pronoun they identify are proper, and that's why they are offset using commas. Non-essential adjective clause are also called non-defining adjective clause. For example, last month we went on a trip to Oli, which is a beautiful place. John Jones, who is the light heavyweight champion in the UFC, got arrested last night. She doesn't even know Max, whose bag she has stolen. Russell Peter, who is a famous comedian, is coming back to India after 15 years. After all the traveling or shopping, I dropped the plan to go to the Red Fort, which is famous mountain. Mangoes, which I love eating, are used in many dishes. We have 5 rules for creating an adjective clause. 1. Adjective clause start with a relative pronoun. The reason adjective clause are also called relative clause is because they usually begin with relative pronouns. For example, the new restaurant, which just opened last month, has already closed down. I took my partner, who has never seen snow, on a ski trip. My blue tennis shoes, which used to be my mom's, were under the bed. Daniel, who was late again today, sits next to me in English. Relative pronouns have many uses. If you see one, it doesn't always mean there's an adjective clause. However, seeing a relative pronoun in a sentence means there might be an adjective clause. Relative pronouns commonly used for adjective clause include the following: that, which, who, whom, whose, where, and when. Additionally, the relative pronouns whoever, whomever, wherever, and whichever can also introduce adjective clause, but these are much less common than those in the list above. We will take either a taxi or bus, whichever comes first. Likewise, the relative pronoun why can occasionally be used for adjective clause, although the use is rare. The movie Annabelle is the reason why I got rid of my doll collections.
Adjective clauses need a subject and a verb. They contain both a subject and a verb. Adjective clauses are not different, meaning each one must have its own subject and verb. For example, Michael didn't believe that I won my first wrestling match. This is example. The subject of the adjective clause is I and the verb is want. Notice how these are different from the subject and verb of the independent clause, which are Michael's subject and believe verb. Keep in mind that sometimes the subject of an adjective clause is the relative pronoun. All pronouns are a type of noun, so they act as a subject. For another example is, I need a roommate who is not afraid of spiders. The third one, adjective clauses are connected to independent clauses. Because adjective clauses are a type of dependent clause, they must be connected to an independent clause to form a complete sentence. In other words, you cannot use adjective clauses alone. For example, incorrect form is where they have Wi-Fi, but the correct form is let's go to a cafe where they have Wi-Fi. The fourth one, adjective clauses relate to nouns from the independent clause. Adjective clauses modify nouns, which means they must be related to another noun outside the adjective clause. The noun could be a subject, direct object, prepositional object, or any other role for a noun. For example, she didn't wake from the nap until 6 p.m. when the sun was setting. In this adjective clause example, the noun 6 p.m., which is the object of the preposition until, is modified by the adjective clause when the sun was setting. The last one, adjective clauses come after the noun. Unlike normal adjectives that usually come before the noun they modify, adjective clauses always come after it. This makes it fairly easy to identify which noun they modify. For example, the rich lady whose house we were at wasn't even home. This means that you can never start a sentence with an adjective clause. However, you can start a sentence with a noun clause, which can also begin with a relative pronoun. So be careful you don't mix them up.
Sometimes, but not always, you can remove the relative pronoun is an adjective clause and the sentence is still correct. Example, this is the book that I was talking about. 2. This is the book I was talking about. But of the above adjective clause, examples are correct, but one is missing the relative pronoun that in certain situations you can get rid of the relative pronoun and the grammar is still correct. When it is fine to remove a relative pronoun, if the relative pronoun acts as the subject in the adjective clause, you cannot remove it, otherwise it's okay to drop it. I met someone whom you dated in high school. In this adjective clause, example, the relative pronoun, whom is used as the object of the verb date. The subject of the adjective clause is you. The subject is the doer of the action, and in this case, the pronoun you is doing the dating. Because the relative pronoun whom is used as an object, you can safely remove it. In this new example, the relative pronoun who is the subject, because the subject is the doer of the action. Now, who does the dating? Who is a pronoun that represents the intended someone. Because the relative pronoun who acts as the subject, we cannot remove it. Correct. I met someone you dated in high school. Now let's rephrase the adjective clause example. I met someone who dated in your high school. Incorrect. I met someone dated you in high school. That is a quick way to remember when it's okay to drop the relative pronoun. It's an adjective clause and it works most of the time if the relative pronoun is immediately followed by a verb. It's probably the subject of the clause. That means we can remove it. If the word after the relative pronoun is a noun, then that noun is probably the subject. which means we can remove the relative pronoun. In our fourth example, the relative pronoun whom was followed by the noun you. It was safe to remove whom because you was the subject. In our second example, the relative pronoun who was followed by the verb that. This time who was the subject, so we couldn't remove it. Removing the relative pronoun is useful if you want to make your writing shorter and more energetic. Thank you for attention.